What's up, core reporters? Welcome back to my channel. Former Teen Mom 2 star Kailyn Lowry is fighting with all her baby daddies, and she wants to make sure that you damn well know it. This episode of Baby Mama's No Drama was just jam-packed with nothing but drama when it comes to her baby daddies, and I don't even know where to start. Listen, I've got an audio clip where Kailyn herself says that her latest alleged baby daddy, Elijah Scott, is no longer on speaking terms with his father, and it's because of her. Oh my God. Okay, we'll get to that. But not around the kids, and Kailyn doesn't know if she wants the kids to be around this woman anymore. Like, it's a lot. Okay, let's start it from the very beginning, shall we? So, like I said, something's going on in Kailyn's world, and she really wants to take out like those frustrations on this week's episode. So, at the very top of the episode, Kailyn shares a very inflammatory story. Okay, so trigger warning for you guys, but she talks about how there's this guy who offed his stepdaughter, who was very young, by like punching her until she passed away. And it's a very, very like horrific, wild story. I don't know why she would have brought that out of the blue, because it's just, you know what I mean? It's like a freak story. You know what I mean? So she shares this story, and then she's like, yeah, so like stories like that is why I don't really want people who don't like me around my kids, because I'm worried that they might take their anger out on my kids, which, I do think is a reasonable anxiety to have. Like, if I had a kid and I was dating or whatever, like I would be really nervous about dating, like for things like this happening, because you do unfortunately hear, it's not super common, thank God, but you do unfortunately hear about like crazy people doing crazy things to, stepkids or their boyfriend or girlfriend's kids and whatnot. So I do get that. But then when I think about it, I'm like, girl, I feel like I don't know. Child, let me eat my tartiflette. Actually, I can't eat it because I don't like when people eat on camera, but it looks so good and it smells so good. Okay, listen. I found it a little bit interesting that she said something like this, because I know that she hates Javi, her ex-husband, Javi Marroquin's new long-suffering. She's not even new. She's been suffering for a long time, y'all. That girl that he's always cheating on, his second baby mama, Lauren. Kailyn hates her, right? And Lauren hates Kailyn as well. That has been documented for many years. And then Kailyn, a couple months ago, on this same exact podcast, Baby Mama's No Drama, she acted shocked, appalled. She was literally crying because this girl that she hates and has talked crap about for years on TV and on her podcast decided to pull out her kids from a football team because Kailyn put her kids on the same football team. She's like, I don't mess with you, and I don't want to be dealing with you outside of places where I absolutely have to, like exchanges or whatever. I don't want to be cheering for my kid and then have you like on the sidelines with me. And Kailyn was crying about that, right? So why is it that Kailyn is able to have this boundary, right? I don't want people who hate me around my kids if I can help it. But when someone else has the same boundary, it's shocking. And Kailyn's the victim and she has to cry about it. Right? Do you guys remember that episode? I recapped it. I don't know what I entitled the video, but I do have a video on it. It was the first thing that popped into my head when she started saying this. And then not only that, but Kailyn has said some weird things about her own damn kids. Do you guys remember where on her podcast, I don't even know which one, this one might have been the Coffee Combos podcast, she said that, whenever she's fighting with her assorted baby daddies, sometimes like she just has a hard time like with the kid because the kids look like their various fathers, right? And I remember she used Lincoln as an example. There was a time where she was fighting hardcore with Javi. And then she said sometimes just because Lincoln looks so much like his daddy, she would just like have a hard time like connecting with him in that moment, or this, that, or the other. Or she would like, I don't want to say that she would treat him weird or differently or whatever, but she said something that made me give her a side eye. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I do think that she was starting off talking about Lauren and Javi, perhaps, but I'm not sure. I do think something recently went down with Javi. Something tells me. Anyway, next she moves the story over to another baby daddy. This time we're skipping on over to Mexico with Chris, right? Javi was what? Guatemala? Now we're going to Mexico. Chris, she's like, here's another example. Chris, his girlfriend cut Lux's hair because Chris told her that she could. I don't know how far this girl is willing to go with my kids. Girl, please. I don't know that Chris's girlfriend cut Lux's hair with bad intentions, because guess what? Also on this podcast, you guys know I recap it every single week for my channel members, right? So I listen to this and I have a pretty decent memory for drama. So I don't think that Chris Lopez's girlfriend, the long-suffering one that, like, you know, was the number one of the hierarchy when he started recruiting Kale for the harem, I don't think that she cut Lux's hair with bad intentions. And let me tell you why. Kale could actually tell you why herself, but she won't. You know why? Sorry, I took a bite. It is just too tempting. Let me show it to you guys. So good. So Kale said herself on the podcast that Chris's girlfriend, she does hair super well. She will have Lux in the freshest braids. I think she's black. She has Lux in the freshest braids, cornrows. Like, she knows that his hair is always in good hands when the girlfriend does it. The girlfriend probably did this hair, okay? So she has had permission for a long time to do Lux's hair. So if she heard, like, you know, from her man, right? If Chris came down from his grandma's attic and said, hey, you know, why don't we cut Lux's hair today? I think the girlfriend would have been like, oh, why not? You know, it's getting long. Maybe it's something, you know, it's time for something different. It's just hair, it grows back. Like, it's not like, oh, like this shocking thing, because like Kale said herself on her podcast, the girl has had permission to do Lux's hair. She does a great job with Lux's hair. I think that just because Kale is going through something right now with Chris or with Javi, she wants to flip it into something crazy. And she wants to intimate or imply that this girl is capable of punching her son to sleep, the same way that that crazy ass man in the story that she started the podcast with is capable of doing. And if I were that girl, I'd be disgusted. I'd be like, are you freaking kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, that is psychotic. That is wild. Like, I don't know. Honestly, I would be really disgusted by that, because Kale has done some effed up things to that girl too, right? Kale, I don't like that girl. She cut Lux's hair, but Chris told her to. That's her man. That's the baby's dad. If the baby's dad says, hey, like, you always do my kid's hair, why don't you cut it this time? I don't think you're going to think it's like a naughty thing he's doing, a bad thing he's doing. You know what I mean? Not only that, but Kale, didn't you out this girl's pregnancy to spite Chris? And you want to say that, like, she goes far and she does things and you don't know what she's capable of? Come on now, right? Come on. And so then it gets even more dark. She's like, you know, like, but she tries to clean it up. But I don't think she's capable of doing that. I don't think she's capable of offing anybody. And I don't think Chris is. Well, except for me. Yeah, you guys. She said on her podcast that she thinks that Chris is capable of offing her. Whew. Like I said, something is not going on well with that girl. And she, you know what you would say? She's like at the end of her rope right now. Like, it feels like. And it has to do with this Elijah thing as well. She's got issues with the baby daddies, right? The baby daddy committee. Then the newest one, the live-in one, he's got beef going on. And again, I've got that audio. We are going to play it. She's stressing and she's just really venting on this week's episode of the podcast. She did also mention that she's been dealing with a lot of lawyers lately. And like I said, she mentioned a fight happening with one of her kids' dads the day before she shot the podcast episode. It is a lot piling up. And yeah, I don't know. This is why I like having a simple life. You know, I don't date guys who've got, like, you know, baby mamas, this, that, and the other. Like, you think I want this stuff coming into my simple life? Please, absolutely not. So here's another thing where Kale is like trying to cause trouble again, right? First, you have her slick trying to imply that Chris Lopez's girlfriend could do something so heinous to her children, Lux or Creed. Now, she's mad. She's fuming. She's angry because one of her baby daddies referred to himself and his girlfriend as we. Yeah, that's upsetting to Kailyn. So basically, in the podcast, she said that she texted this baby daddy about something involving the children. The baby daddy lives with a girlfriend. And so the baby daddy said, okay, yeah, like we'll talk about this like when we get back home. He and his girlfriend will talk about it when they get back home. And Kail was pissed. She's like, I don't think he has a right to use we. They're not married. They're this or that. Like, they're not this, they're not that. I'm like, girl, don't you refer to yourself and Elijah as we? We do this with the kids. We do that with the kids. That's fine, but not for anybody else to do that with their significant other. And mind you, Chris has been with his long-suffering girlfriend long before Kail ever met Elijah, right? He was with his girlfriend before he was even with Kail. Kail was recruited for the harem that was already pre-existing, right? So he's got more of a right to use the we word than Kail does. Not only that, but Javi, he too has been with his long-suffering girlfriend, Lauren, cheating on her long before Kail ever met Elijah. So for her to be upset that these people who are in relationships that are like more established and longer lasting than her new relationship with this Elijah guy, simply using the word we, we'll deal with this when we get home. Like that's insane to me. Like that is insane. I see why she doesn't want to date men who have kids, because she's scared that other women are as crazy as she is, because what the heck is that? And it's just so ironic because at the top of this podcast episode, what does she talk about? By the way, she tells V this story, obviously, as her co-host, and V's like, blah blah blah, like I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she said something along the lines of like, okay, well, why don't you gradually kind of like work on this as she kind of, gets involved in the co-parenting. And Kail says that the woman is not and never will be part of their co-parenting situation. Again, it's simply untrue, because both of these baby daddies live with their girlfriends and have other children with their girlfriends. So of course, these other women who are living with Kail's children half the week are involved in her co-parenting situation. Just like Kail has involved Elijah in her co-parenting situation since the month after she met him, right? What did she say at the top of this podcast episode? That Elijah had been driving the boys around. That makes him a part of her co-parenting situation, right? He's playing daddy to these kids when they are at her house. He's driving Isaac back and forth. He's driving Lincoln back and forth. He's doing X, Y, and Z for the boys and with the boys. It's okay for her to refer to her and Elijah, and what they do is we allow him to be part of co-parenting her kids and whatnot. But nobody else can do that, apparently. The fact that this girl has been claiming to go to therapy for 5 years, I need to know like the name of this alleged therapy office or practitioner or whatever, because it's just not working, girl. It's just not, because this is just wow. I feel like even people who don't go to therapy are more thoughtful than this. Like, what the actual heck is this? Anyway, now she goes into people trying to control the way that you dress as a woman, especially when you have children. And this was inspired by Keke Palmer's unemployed baby daddy trying to have an opinion on the clothes that she bought with her own money that she wore to an Usher concert that, whose ticket she bought with her own money as well, right? I saw a tweet saying, oh, how dare you do this, from Keke Palmer's phone plan. You don't have money to have your own phone plan. Anyway, so that was a topic of conversation. And Kail claims that Javi and his family tried to control how she dressed when she was married to him, because they said she needed to portray herself a certain way as a mother of two. Just a little sidebar there, okay? Before we get to the meat and the potatoes of this episode, let me pull out the audio clip that I have been promising you people, okay? Now, here is the audio where Kail talks about what really has been bothering her this whole episode that has got her so on edge, ready to drag everybody around her. The issue right now, numero uno, en su vida, in her life, is that Elijah no longer is really talking to his father, and it's her fault. According to her, I didn't say that. Take a listen, okay? Let me make sure I put it on 1x speed.
I dropped off a card for Elijah's dad's for Father's Day, because I was like, you're not going to go see your father for Father's Day. Yeah. And this is weird. I'm not, like, that's weird. So I put a card in this mailbox. I didn't go see him or anything, but I popped it in there. But yeah, because the last thing we want is to be the blame either when I am. It's fine. And you know, and I knew this is why I didn't want to meet his family to begin with, because I knew this is the shit that would happen, and it is. But you know, here we are. Yeah, here we are. Just making the best of it, crying on the weekends. It's fine.
So there you go. Elijah ain't talking to his daddy. Kail says she's the reason behind it. That's the reason why she didn't want to meet the parents. So she dropped off a Father's Day card in his mailbox. It's got to be bad if Elijah's father does not want to spend Elijah's first Father's Day as a father of 5. I'm joking. If it's a father of 1 with him, you know what I mean? That dad really must have a disdain for Kail. Kail says that she knew it would happen. Doesn't it always happen with her and her significant others' families? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe so. And so that's why she didn't want to meet his family. But voila. I know there have been rumors flying. I believe I've gotten, several DMs about this. I'm going to have to go back and listen to those podcasts for myself. But apparently in prior episodes of the podcast, while I was away on vacay, Kail was talking about how Elijah's family is upset with her for something. There's rumors that she's pregnant with twins right now, which would be her 6th and 7th children. For those of you wondering where number 5 came from, Kail pretty much confirmed it herself on last week's episode of the pod when she told a Barely Famous podcast where she told her guest that she was giving birth in a hospital when she watched that guest show, which came out in 2022, therefore confirming baby number 5. Now, there are rumors that she's pregnant with numbers 6 and 7, and that could be the reason why Elijah's parents are so furious with him. How do you go from a 23-year-old man with no children to being a 23-year-old man with 1 child, 2 on the way? So you're going to be a father of 3. Sorry, what would his age be now? 24, 25? Father of 3. And then your baby mama has multiple other kids by multiple other men as well. The situation's not ideal. I will be honest, because I love a good honesty around here. I would not approve of this relationship, right? If I had a son and he brought home a girl in Kail's predicament at her tender young age, absolutely not. I would not approve of it. I've got 2 brothers. If they brought home a Kail, I would not be for it, I wouldn't. So I wouldn't be surprised. Stay tuned for more details. It sounds like she's also like kind of low key firing those shots to let Elijah's family know that they're not going to be around her kids. Elijah Rio, which is baby number 5, and the potential 2 other ones that might be coming soon. Wow, you guys, there's a lot going on. Like I said, Kail was on a mission on this week's episode of Baby Mama's No Drama to air out all her damn drama. And she did it. She absolutely freaking did it. I believe this is just for the beginning. Wait until Coffee Combos comes out. She might have some more to spill with Lindsay. Lindsay's messy. She loves to get into the weeds of these sorts of things. She might pull out some more info. And voila. So this episode of Baby Mama's No Drama was filmed before Father's Day weekend, I believe. So now Father's Day weekend has passed. Now we might see her pick up with a story about how it went on one of her podcasts. Anyway, guys, how do you feel about all that's going on? Her being upset at her baby daddies for using the word we to talk about their living girlfriends who have been with them longer than Kail's been with Elijah, right? Saying that those women will never be part of the co-parenting equation. Meanwhile, Elijah's all up in it, despite, only having been with Kail for about a year now. And Elijah beefing with his father and Kail accepting responsibility for it. There's a lot to uncover, okay? Let me know what you think about all of it in the comment section down below. And as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.